Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we are talking about one of the greatest games of all time and those hidden bits of information that have flown under the radar. These are 25 things you didn't know about Super Mario 64.
Let's go!
Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos. Real world background. Here's one that 90% of players don't know, unless you're a fan of Out of Bounds Secrets. Wet Dry World is one of the most intriguing levels in the game, and also one of the more hemorrhoid-inducing, but for once we're not talking about my hemorrhoids. At the highest point of the level, the skybox becomes visible, and it does seem a little bit out of place. Instead of the typical sky or abstract backdrop like in most levels, Wet Dry World features a photorealistic image of an actual city. Data miners uncovered that the image is a real Egyptian city, and also uncovered that their time data mining could have been better spent literally doing anything else. Exclusive launch.
It's me, Mario!
It's been almost 30 years since the N64 launched, so modern players aren't aware just how exclusive Mario 64 was. These days, it's almost standard for a new console to launch with at least a dozen games, but when the Nintendo 64 launched, players had just two options: Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wings 64. I don't need to tell you this, but Mario was better. The many faces of Mario. If you follow my topics, I love it when there are secrets and Easter eggs that are exclusive to the Japanese versions of games, as stuff often gets stripped away before Western release. Although this was exclusive to Japanese players, Super Mario 3D All-Stars made it available to us filthy Westerners. By pressing these shoulder buttons on the title screen, a swirling spiral of smaller animated Mario faces appear. It adds an extra layer of weirdness to an already surreal startup screen where Mario's face can be stretched and pulled in every direction, though it's been available to us since 1996. End credits directed by. Did you know that you can add a lovely personal touch to the end credits of Super Mario 64 by connecting a second controller? There's absolutely no reason to even touch a second controller in this game, so most players miss that. With it, you can adjust the camera's angle during the credits, essentially taking the role of director. Though it's not as free roam as the in-game camera, you can still shift the view to focus on different structures and characters. Unfortunately, you can't recast. Almost annoying. Super Mario 64 wasn't just Mario's first leap into 3D, it was also the first time players heard him speak. Well, except for Mario Teaches Typing from 1994, but I'm not here for semantics. For the N64, Nintendo opted for a cheerful, high-pitched voice from the brilliant Charles Martinet. But there is a dark alternate reality not too far from ours where Mario was far more annoying. Early beta footage reveals Mario's original voice was painfully shrill, and it was downright ear-piercing. Imagine the noise SNES Yoshi makes when you jump on him stretched out for all eternity. Super Mario 16. Nintendo 64 took a wild turn for the company, using their tech to bring 3D gaming to the forefront. But did you know that the Super FX chip that was built into the SNES cartridges was powerful enough that Nintendo had started experimenting with 3D, getting geared up for a wave of 3D games, including a 3D Mario game that ended up being Mario 64. Many of the core concepts behind Super Mario 64 were first imagined during the SNES era, and the only real reason the move to N64 happened was due to the controller, rather than the graphical requirements. The Impossible Coin and Doomed Goomba. In Super Mario 64, most levels are packed with well over 100 coins, and collecting that amount usually earns players a star. But in Snowman's Land and Tiny Huge Island, lone coins are hidden out of sight behind walls, only visible if you mess with the camera. But that's not the only thing hidden out of bounds. In Bowser in the Sky, there's a Goomba that's supposed to appear on a platform, but hackers eventually discovered that the Goomba spawns far below the level and falls to its death almost immediately. Why does everyone else always live my dreams? The Corpse of the Fallen King. The first major boss battle in Super Mario 64 pits you against King Bob-omb, which requires a fairly easy climb in terms of platforming climbs in this game. The only true obstacle on this climb are the two giant black balls that roll down the hill. After defeating the big boy himself, a third big black ball mysteriously appears in the same path. Coincidence? Nope. Complete with a big crown, King Bob-omb is forced to spend the rest of his eternity rolling down the same hill. Jesus. Man of many hats. Have you guys ever heard of the double hat glitch? It happens when Mario picks up two hats in quick succession. The game's unusual solution, it places one of the hats in Mario's right hand as if he's holding it. Now head to the Snowman's Land level. After Mario's hat is blown off by the giant snowman's icy breath, players can use the warp beneath the nearby tree, which duplicates the hat, and picking out both will activate the glitch, causing Mario to visibly hold one hat while wearing the other. Angry Mother. One cute little quest in Mario 64 requires Mario to carry a baby penguin from the top of the snowy level down to its mother at the bottom. Successfully reuniting the pair earns you a power star, and that's where most players think that they're done with this little cherub. If you try to pick up the baby again after returning it, the mother becomes visibly upset and will chase after Mario until he puts the chick down. By the way, also happens in real life. Left speechless.
Dear Mario, please come to the castle. I have baked a cake for you. Yours truly, Princess Toadstool.
Mario made a good amount of noise through Mario 64, but Princess Peach's voice was heard only twice in the entire game. However, the Japanese release of Super Mario 64 originally left out Peach's voice entirely. Despite her lines being present in every other version, Japanese players experienced the game in total silence where her voice should have been. Guess Japan is more of a daisy country. That sounds familiar. Reusing and repurposing assets is a common practice in game development. It saves time and resources, and when done creatively, it can be surprisingly effective. With the Mario franchise being home to some of the most iconic villain laughs in gaming history, you might not expect them to be the creation of recycling. Boo's unsettling laugh in Super Mario 64 is actually just a modified version of Bowser's roar. With a few clever tweaks, the developers turned one fearsome laugh into another. Well done, devs. Same song, different sound.
Let's go!
Anyone who's spent a good amount of time in Mario 64 will instantly recognize the sound that plays when jumping into a new level. Mario's voice chimes in, followed by a catchy, oddly familiar tune. I sing it all the time around the house, to the point where I get yelled at for it. You might assume it's just part of the consistent sound design across Mario titles, but it's actually a sped up version of the overworld theme from the original Super Mario Bros. Just like Boo's laugh being remixed into Bowser's chuckle, a slight tempo change gave the old tune a distinctive feel.
Let's go!
Star Recolor.
Here we go!
With the goal of the game basically being collect stars, Mario 64 made this easy to track. As you explore, stars you've already collected are marked as a translucent dark blue. But interestingly, that wasn't always the case. In early builds of the game, collected stars were actually grey. It's likely Nintendo felt the grey didn't stand out enough against the game's vibrant environments and opted for the darker blue so that they were easier to spot and avoid.
Here we go!
Blowing up the chain chomp. One of the red coins in Bob-omb Battlefield hovers just above the post where the massive chain chomp is chained, a spot that's pretty tough to reach. Fortunately, there's a clever workaround. If you're fast, you can grab a Bob-omb from the nearby field, time your approach carefully, and toss it just beneath the chain chomp. When it explodes, the blast will launch the chain chomp straight into the air, giving you a brief window to safely grab the red coin. Most players don't know this is an option, instead opting for taking damage and just getting in there. Controlling tick-tock clock. What many players of Mario 64 don't realize is that the clock in Tick-Tock Clock is controllable by the player. The speed and behavior of the stage can be controlled based on the position of the minute hand when you enter. Jump in when it's on a 3 and everything moves slower. Enter at 6 and the pace speeds up. A 9 causes the machinery to move unpredictably and out of sync, while the 12 freezes all motion completely, turning the level into a still life platforming puzzle. It's a great way to manipulate the level to your advantage. Mario the Hedgehog. Development on Super Mario 64 began around mid-1994, when neither the console's hardware or its controller had been finalized. Early builds of the game were developed on high-powered Onyx workstations, and in the absence of the finished N64 controller, the development team turned to modified Sega controllers, which at this point in time feels like a wild betrayal. Getting all stars. Everyone knows that collecting all 120 stars in Super Mario 64 earns you a trip to the roof of Peach's castle, where Yoshi is waiting with 100 extra lives as a reward. But reaching that milestone actually does more than just unlock a boring old roof. For example, the penguin you raced in Cool Cool Mountain is heavier and tougher to beat. And if you face off with Bowser again, he delivers a slightly different message. But I'll let you guys experience. Fine, I'll tell you. He says, "Hey, kid, go yourself." Reversing death. Video game consoles often struggle with large numbers. Same. In Super Mario 64, Mario's coin counter typically maxes out at 999. However, during the final battle with Bowser in Bowser in the Sky, his fireballs can turn into coins when they hit the ground, making it possible to collect just enough to push the total to 1,000. Doing so triggers a strange glitch. Mario's life counter will display as M25, and if he falls off the level and dies, he actually gains a life instead of losing one. I'm not smart enough to know why this is, so let's just say it's magic. Marking the end. Anyone who played the original Super Mario Bros. Remembers racing to the flagpole, hoping for a high score or maybe even a bonus life. Or if you're me, you were completely convinced you could jump over the pole. Idiot. But in Super Mario 64, the flagpole was notably absent. Given Mario 64's more open-ended world design, the developers cut the flagpole. But did you know, development plans did include flagpoles, but the team felt that exploring and collecting items better complemented the 3D gameplay. Looney Tunes. Obviously, Charles Martinet is the man, and defined Nintendo voice acting for over 25 years. But before Martinet put his beautiful pipes on wax, Nintendo actually used stock Looney Tunes sound clips as temporary placeholders during development for Mario 64. Of course, there was never any intention to include these lines in the final game, but it's a fun peek into the behind-the-scenes process. 64 was a lie. Don't let Big Nintendo tell you lies. Although the console had a powerful 64 bits of processing power, a lot of the games, Mario 64 included, actually ran using just 32-bit processing, which feels like false advertising. There were two main reasons for this choice: storage limitations and smoother, faster gameplay. Obviously, they made the right choice, and yes, Super Mario 32 would have been a terrible name. Quit horsing around. Remember how much of a game changer it was in Ocarina of Time when you unlocked the horse? Interestingly, rideable horses were originally considered for Super Mario 64 during early development, which doesn't seem like a good fit, especially considering Yoshi is right there. While the idea never made it into the final game, it was reportedly discussed in depth, and it's believed that these discussions are what influenced Ocarina of Time in the end. Brothers in Arms. Speaking of Yoshi not being included, another notable absence is Luigi, Mario's brother, who appears to have been intended for the game. The creators revealed that an early prototype actually featured both Mario and Luigi as playable characters, along with split-screen multiplayer. What happened? Why was this cut? Ultimately, Nintendo decided to focus on a streamlined single-player experience, forever cementing them as my greatest enemies.
Let's go.
The sequel that never was. Whenever discussions about Super Mario 64 wrap up, they often circle back to the persistent rumor of a sequel that never was. But it's true, a sequel commonly called Super Mario 64 2 was actually in development. This game was said to feature Luigi as a playable character and possibly include multiplayer, ideas that weren't surprising given the previous entry. It was a game that would have been awesome to play, but since we got Super Mario Sunshine and Galaxy 1 and Galaxy 2 next, we're not really complaining. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.